going on? Coming back with another video. I have worked on the go-kart a little bit off camera. As you can see, there's a vast difference between last time I had a go-kart video and this time. I actually added suspension on the back. You can see I just welded little brackets on both sides, went ahead and mounted the shock, and I have these pieces of metal. I don't even know what they're actually used for, but I made little hinges for the back. As you can see, it does work. I do need to change this a little bit though, because when I crank the motor it just wiggles a little bit too much because there's too much flex in these pieces. But I'll just, put a piece here or something. It'll probably help out. This morning we're actually going to work on the front suspension, and I'll actually bring y'all along with the journey. I've already built this cradle. I got to finish welding it all up. But essentially this cradle is going to hold the front suspension. As you can see, here's where the A-arms, the little suspension arms will mount. You can already see got holes here, and then up here is where the shock mounts. And then I will be chopping off this front section right here. Basically the pedals right here will be replaced. I will have to move the steering shaft, and I'm gonna remove basically from here up and replace it with this piece. And I'm gonna just go ahead and get started. Alright, so as you can see, I got the steering rack out. Of course, I am going to take off the pedals. Once I got the pedals off, I'm gonna go ahead and chop off this front little part, and then I will be working on getting the new suspension and the cradle to sit right here in this place. So as you can see, I got the old knuckles off, took off the steering wheel, of course it's laying right there, and I will notch this section here, and I will be adding that into the notch, and of course I'm going to be welding that on there. And once that is on there, we're going to take this cradle, and let me just move this out the way a little bit. So it's gonna roughly sit like this. Just of course it'll sit in that little notch, and then the suspension will mount on the front of this. Alright, so I have this piece welded in here now. As you can see, I can actually lift the whole entire back of the go-kart by it. So I think the strength is good. I'm gonna go ahead and figure out where I need to cut this, and I will go ahead and cut that off so I can fit the cradle, because of course this will sit like this and weld on that section right there. Of course it's just gonna be straight on, but of course I just need to cut that to length to figure out how long it's gonna be. Right, so I have decided I'm gonna actually relocate and lean back the seat just for a more comfortable seating position. So I've welded on this contraption here just to kind of lift up that beam. As you can see, it's going to be welded right here, and I'm gonna probably weld it along that edge too, and then of course up along here. And it's just going to give it a little more of an angle and maybe be a better position to be seated on the go-kart. And I got the brackets welded in. Of course, don't mind the ugly welds. It is what it is. Once it cools, I'm going to mount the seat back on here. And then I'm going to figure out positioning of the feet. And once that's figured out, I'll have the measurement of how much to cut off, and then it'll be time to get that cradle welded onto the front of this. It's starting to look good. So as you can see, I cut off this piece and welded it together. Of course, always those ugly welds. And I got the suspension on. I am going to fit in the springs now, And once I got the springs in, I'm gonna pop on the tires, which are laying over there. I'm gonna pop those on, and it'll actually be able to sit under its own weight, and we'll just see how it sits. Alright, so as you see, I had to make a little extension because the steering rack, these I can't make short enough to work. But I of course welded on the brackets for the steering rack to mount onto. Once I get the steering rack mounted, I'll be able to figure out the placement for the steering wheel. Of course, with the seat being in a different position, I'll have to rethink the stand, figure out where it needs to be, and I'll get that figured out. As you see, I have the steering rack in place. Now I am working on mounting the steering wheel. It's going to sit roughly like this. I'm going to weld it on there, and I'll use this spare piece right here to make the brace. And once I have all that together, it will be time to worry about the pedals, the brake line, throttle cable, and after I get that together, it's ready to kind of do a little test drive, I guess. So as you can see, the steering wheel is in place. Of course, there's really no great way to put the steering wheel with the length of the steering shaft, but I will go ahead and find the center and hook up the little tie rods onto the knuckles and get the steering actually functional, and then I will move into getting the pedal assembly going right here. So I've got the brake hooked up. Of course, that rod runs all the way back to my little contraption here that holds everything on. I got the spring to keep it pushed back, and I am getting started on the gas pedal now. As you can see, the gas pedal, I'm just gonna have it mounted right here. I'll weld that on, and that will go ahead and give us that part of it. So we have the gas pedal in place. Of course, I will be putting some kind of spring to kind of help it get back into place, because it doesn't actually bounce back like I hope it would. But that's fine. We got the gas pedal on. It's getting kind of late, as you can tell, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up for the day, and we'll see how it goes tomorrow. I bought the longer brake line, and as you can see, when I was welding on the little bracket, I did get a little bit on there, and as you can see, that is a little burnt. I'm hoping that's not going to affect anything, but for some reason this thing doesn't seem to hold any brake pressure anymore. Hopefully it's not because of the line, but I went ahead, and since it's kind of hard to refill that one while it's mounted on the go-kart, I went ahead and bought a brake cylinder with a reservoir. So of course I'm gonna mount that reservoir up here somewhere. Right now I'm getting ready to weld on this bracket, and then of course that's going to be the new brake. It's just going to be directly pedal to master cylinder. None of this rod going down BS I had going on. And once I get this welded on, I'm going to unbolt this and switch the brake line from that brake cylinder to this one. So I got the bracket kind of on there. I just tack welded a little bit on both sides, because of course I always want to make sure it works before I finalize all welds. Now it's time to go ahead and switch that line onto the new one, and once I get the brakes bled, I will go ahead and mount it and test it, and then it'll be time to kind of fine-tune the throttle, because right now it's not working right. Once I finish this, I'll get into details with that. Alright, so as you see, I did have to zip tie a little bit because this only has one screw and this part was kind of lifting up. I have this zip tied and bolted on here for now. Of course I already bled the brakes, went ahead and zip tied the lines all the way to the back. Don't mind this. This is just of course what I was using to see the bubbles coming out. Already made sure that I do have brake pressure made sure that there's no more bubbles inside, and now it's time to start taking some of this back apart so I can figure out a better way to make the throttle, because at the moment it is slightly open. I'm not sure, can't really see it, but it's slightly open. Once I get all this off, I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can see I actually broke the bolt while trying to get this off, so that's why I went to this style. So this essentially just pulls on this, which of course is hard to do because I have the spring actually holding the throttle closed, as you can see, so it moves this way to open. So I actually have it holding it closed, and then when I hit the gas pedal, it pulls on this nice taped contraption and pushes in the throttle. And that's how it is right now. I'm about to bolt on the airbox again. I might weld on a brace just for now, and then after I do that, I'm gonna actually go take it out for a test drive. Alright, so I went ahead and put on a little base plate so you have your feet to rest on. I have everything kind of tidied up for now, and as you see, the steering wheel is decent. The pedals are still a little close, but with this whole contraption up front, there's no way I could really, it's just gonna be this way. And as you can see, I can come around the side and just give it a nice pull, and we're just gonna give it a nice little cruise. The brakes are still not that good. I'll have to figure something out, as always, but as you can see, you can actually watch the suspension and it actually moves. But yeah, so the go-kart is rideable now. Everything kind of works, and at this point I'm gonna actually wrap it up for the day, and next time I pick up on working on this, I'm of course gonna make the brake a lot better. I'm gonna start bracing out this whole section, and yeah, that'll probably be part 2 of this video. So to wrap up the last round of clips, I've decided that yes, this works. Yes, this is kind of cool. Suspension works and all, but I think the go-kart is getting a little too long. So since it is getting a lot longer, I'm going to re-engineer the whole entire front, and that's just going to be another video. So stay tuned for another rendition of the kart.